President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday vowed to end Nigerians' over-reliance on borrowing to finance public spending. He made the vow at the inauguration of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Nigerian total public debt rose sharply by over 501% in the last 8 years to 72.55 trillion in March of 2023 from 12.06 trillion in March of 2015, a development driven by increased borrowing worsened by the global pandemic and economic recession in 2016 and 2022. Furthermore, the country spent 3.36 trillion to service debt in 2022, representing 14.68% increase from 2.93 trillion in 2021, while the country spends 1.07 trillion to service the external debt. It spent 2.56 trillion to service domestic debt. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had set up a committee chaired by tax and fiscal policy expert Taiwo Oyedele on the July the 7th of 2023. The committee, which comprises experts both from the private and public sector, is responsible for the various aspects of tax law reform, fiscal policy design, and coordination and harmonization of taxes and revenue administration. In his remark at the inauguration yesterday, Mr. President said the inability of the government to effectively raise revenue has led directly to an over-reliance on borrowing to finance public spending, and a government that cannot properly fund itself will also lack the flexibility of fiscal scope to sensibly manage the economy or even respond to external shock, he said. But the big question on the big story for today is how can that be done when our overhead costs and cost of governance is one of the highest in the world? And how can that be achieved in an economy that relies solely on oil and an oil industry that is riddled in corruption? Well, these and more is what this edition of the big story is all about. And that is federal government plans to cut down borrowing and our over-reliance on external loans. And that's what we're having as a major one as the federal government tries to manage our debt profile and deal with the issue of our over-reliance on borrowing to help fund our different budgets. Well, will take center stage on the show today. And who better to help us talk about it rather than an economist and also a comrade in his own right. And we're talking of no other person but our very own comrade, FM&TV. Good morning and welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Mike Henry. Everybody has been waiting to hear your golden and baritone voice.
Well, anyway, I doubt if they'll be happy to know that, the spending and a whole lot of other issues are well appreciated and dealing with 501% in the last 8 years. Our debt profile has risen. But anyway, let's continue with our talk. Now, data we obtained from the Debt Management Office on account of this our discussion today shows that the 72 trillion total public debt comprises of 19.64 trillion of foreign debt, 30.21 trillion of domestic debt, and 22.7 trillion naira of ways and means lending of the federal government by the Central Bank of Nigeria. While the country spent, like I said in my introduction, 1.07 trillion to service its external debt, it spent, or rather had to spend 2.56 trillion to service domestic debt. Now my question is, with what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said yesterday, and basically it's on in all dailies this morning, is it that the federal government is just waking up to realize that there is no way that this can be sustained? Or is it more of a policy shift due to a change of administration that we're hearing such coming from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? I want to understand.
Oh, yes, Mike, thank you very much for the beautiful topic you just introduced. You know, there is this saying that failure cannot cope with persistency. If you persist on an issue, then the failure becomes a success.
Okay.
This administration that has come into office has been around the corridor of power for a very long time. And they've also been seeing what is happening. They want to see how it can be tackled. They already have a portfolio in place before they come into office. And they knew quite well where the shoe pinches. But it's just unfortunate that as at the time they came in, things were already at a very, very low ebb. That even pulling it out of the river, it takes much more power and muscle than putting it back into the place. And it will take a very long and a hard policy to recover from where we are today. We didn't start this issue today. This is we're experiencing today started far back in the 60s, when nobody actually thought of anything like this will happen. When you are having enough rainfall and you continue, you refuse to collect water because you think that the rain will be there forever. If the rain stops abruptly, what happens? The house dries up, and that is what Nigeria is experiencing. It's a build-up of our inefficiency from the beginning that has put us in this situation. Don't forget, for a very, very, let me not even use a long time, years now, Nigeria has forsaken every other sources of income, and they have put all their hopes in one basket, and which is the oil industry. And when the oil started dwindling, the Nigerian economy started dwindling, and how do you get out of it overnight? In those days, it was a pride for you to say this person is a son of a farmer. It was a pride for you to say that this person's father or a brother or a son is a mechanic. You know the mechanics, they are one of the most intelligent people on earth. Those who will open up engine, couple it, and it works. When they were not even there, when that engine was being constructed. But we have relegated all those issues to the ground, and we are fully dependent on white-collar jobs. And I think that is what this president and the administration want to address by saying that they want to reduce the extent of borrowing to feed, to invest, and to even finance.
So are you now saying it's more of a policy shift?
It's a policy shift.
Because why I'm asking that, because he said it yesterday, that yes, come on, guys, let's be serious.
Yes,
we can't sustain.
We cannot.
It's not
we
sustainable.
Cannot go.
So is it that the last administration did not see this, or they were just too lazy to think of something else?
Not that they were too lazy. Everybody has his own system or style of governance, and everybody wants to look at the way he or she wants to succeed when he leaves office. There are two legacies you leave when we're in a place, either a positive or a negative legacy. We have been following one track right from beginning. But this government looks at it and say, well, you cannot be following one track and you think you want to achieve a different result. If you do a thing 1,000 times without changing your style, you continue getting the same result.
Then that means there's a problem with it.
There is a problem there.
Now, you know what I'm asking? Because major economists will sit down and reason. A country that reclaimed its position, overtaking Libya as Africa's largest oil producer, according to report from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which says that our oil import has risen to 1.184 trillion. That's barrels per day in May of 2023. That's the report they said. So we're now the highest. Many would naturally think that a country that has this would naturally not go borrowing.
Yes,
looking at it. So I really want to know, why were we so over-reliant on borrowing over the years? Yes, I do understand you made mention that we had issues with our exports, especially as it concerns we being just fully reliant on oil. But someone will also reason, every economist especially, let's leave our setting here in Nigeria.
Yes.
International experts will wonder, a country that chunks out the largest oil on the continent does not fall into such a mess.
Yes, you can always fall even further deeper into such a mess if you do not keep your gas in place. Don't also forget that the rate of arrival, if it is even lower than the rate of departure, you have a glut. And if the rate of departure is far higher than the rate of arrival,
selling every day, sir.
We sell every day. What do we plow those monies into? Have you forgotten?
So you mean our public spending
is far higher than what we'll get? Exactly, that's just all. Look at the cost of maintaining executive system of government in Nigeria. Let's not use outside words because we're talking about Nigerian economy. We are the most expensive government bodies in the world. Look at when the president is going out. Look at the type of entourage he carries. Look at when the governors are going out. And for goodness sake, we are talking of 36 states, including Abuja, as the sole administrator of Abuja, who is almost a governor of a state. Now, you are also talking about the governor of the central bank. I remember one of the central bank governors who later became a governor in the East. He had a private jet that he was flying under the federal government maintenance payroll. And all these things are cost of governance. Until we cut down the cost of governance, these things will continue to be there. Number two, after cutting out the cost of governance.
I will plead with you to hold on. We'll come to solutions, because I still want us to really, first of all, understand the problem. We'll come to ways of really dealing with
let's itemize the problem.
Now, let's look at it. Now, we borrowed over 63 trillion in the last 8 years. And I'm still very, very concerned, because what I'm saying this is, if you take our mind back to 2015,
yes,
our debt profile was just put at 12.17 trillion.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to 2023, our debt profile is now put at 72.17 trillion, yeah, which means that in the last 8 years, we borrowed 63 trillion, which is indeed a high one. I still bring it back to you. On the mining, you said initially, yes, okay, we had issues with our oil production, hence, but was it that, because now we're also still having similar issue on the mining, we've now attained that position of the largest oil producer on the continent. But let's look at it. Was it the last administration? Because everything happened under the administration of former President Muhammad Buhari. Was it that they lack that ingenuity in creating more funds, looking for other avenues in creating more funds? Or was it that this was way beyond them? It's something that they just couldn't handle. The money was not just even there in the first place.
How was the money not there when we sell every day, like you just said? It is the management policy that put us in where we are. When this money was coming in, in which area did we look at to invest in such monies? When you remember, when JEJ was still in government, it set up something like a sovereign, common wealth, SWF.
And he got knocks from governors for doing
exactly,
that.
They took him to court.
They needed him to share the
Exactly, they took him to court, and he successfully lost the case, and as I may put it.
That's not success, though. Just go ahead.
Yes, because he didn't win. That is why I say I use that language. Now the governors came hard on him, and everybody was sharing it. There was no savings for tomorrow. And if you don't save for tomorrow, it must definitely come back to you. When we were making all this money in those administrations, especially this past one, which area can the government come up and say and pinpoint that, yes, I invested this money here, that it will give us returns tomorrow? And you continue running, like as I said, an expensive system of government, and you need to service these people. You continue, look at this even current ministerial list we have. We already have 47, and 35 or so have been passed, and they are still going
45 has been passed.
45 have been passed, okay, fine. Then, some of the sections of the country are saying that they are shortchanged, and very likely they are still going to bring more people from that side to increase the ministerial level. Now, if you have 47 ministers, assuming you have 50 in all now, you are going to have 50 ministries, which is very compulsory. And all the ministries will have executive directors. They will have secretaries, they will have permanent secretaries, they will have staff from beginning to the end. How much has that one taken out of the government already? That is just at the federal level. You also create the same thing at the state level. It is only the local government alone that suffers it. And on daily basis, companies are closing up. One just left, now Glasgow Smithline just left now. And don't you know how much that one will have taken out of the economy? And nobody is doing anything about that. And the oil in the international market, we are not even sincere about the volume of what we sell and the remuneration we get.
Money coming
yes, the remuneration we get from it. Look at 2 weeks ago. Yes, it's 2 weeks ago now. A vessel laden with oil was discovered in Warri. How come? Where did it come from? Where was it going? Who owns the vessel? Up till now, they've not been able to tell us anything. And we're even told that it was the military that were guiding that vessel. On whose order? And it has to be intercepted by one of these security contractors. Yes, that seized the vessel, and they were even trying to have a shootout war with them, but they held their ground. So all these things are what the president should actually put in place if we want to reduce our level of borrowing. If you refuse to borrow and you are not generating funds, then you are inviting anarchy. And when the chaos starts, nobody will be able to put it out. Even the military too will not be able to withhold it. So I am of the opinion that if the Mr. President actually wants to stop the level of borrowing in the country, the first thing he has to do
cut down on governance.
Exactly, cut down on governance.
Now, it's more of an advice, but I want us to look how really serious this issue of borrowing is, because many Nigerians will say, "Oh, it doesn't concern me. It's Nigeria that is owing it." But the amount owed by each Nigerian on account of our public debt has increased every year, from 45,173 naira at the beginning of 2013. That's every debt being owed by Nigeria, to 191,889 naira at the beginning of last year. And that was when our own public debt was about 40 trillion. So each Nigerian will be owing close to 380,000 at the moment. Well, let's leave that. I know, Comrade Odomo, you are owing that amount.
I've not seen my statistics.
Definitely, every Nigerian is owing, and I know you are owing about 380,000.
The younger generation will be owing more.
As it stands, and even our own crew member, I'm talking of no other person but Wisdom, with his haircut, he might be owing more than that. But let's leave all of that. But look at what impact such huge borrowing will have on the lives of Nigerians. Definitely
to push us down the poverty line. Because if your debt profile is too high, you become a second-class citizen in your own country. When our neighboring countries in West Africa here was having that same problem, their money at a point fell up to 1,500 to $1. And what do you do with that? It pushes the inflation rate so high, and it becomes a criminal offense for you to even talk about your own currency. Because you will be so embarrassed in the international market when they mention so
380,000 naira.
How do you when
around the head of every Nigerian?
Exactly. So you can be going on the street of Nigeria one day, somebody will just hold you from the back and say, "My friend, come, I have bought you over."
Well, anyway, let's not make it really that cynical.
No, Mike.
Comrade Odomo, I want us to understand how it affects every Nigerian, because that's it. The more we go borrowing, the more every Nigerian is owing at least $1 or $2.
Exactly. So, because if the policy at the top is stiffened, it boils down to you at the bottom level, like what we are experiencing in fuel now. Yeah. You cannot say that you are not involved in the running of the economy of the country, because you are already contributing through the high cost of the fuel. And that is how, when you say, when the country debt, everybody is owing around 380,000, like we just said, people say, how do I borrow money? Do I know where they are borrowing the money? But it is affecting you directly from the policies of the government. That is when at times when people will tell you, because of my religion, I don't vote. When you don't vote, you are contributing to a greater problem to the country. Because if you allow the bad ones to vote in their bad people, the policy by the bad people will be enforced on you, who is the good man. At the end of the day, become a miscreant before those people. So the government policy is directly affecting every citizen. The government says, let us pay tax now. If whether you are comfortable or not, you must pay that tax.
Of course.
If they say, okay, before you go, like when Obasanjo came on board, he destroyed all the toll gates in the country. It didn't affect only one person. It affected all. Forgetting that there were enormous money budgeted to construct those toll gates that were actually carried out.
Destroyed.
And you came overnight and you destroyed all those things. How do you recover those monies? This is not gone down the drain. And
we had even shortfall in dealing with infrastructure then.
Exactly.
And basically, like the last administration would say, more of the money borrowed was basically into cost of governance and definitely infrastructure.
That is just all.
So what you're saying is a lack of plan.
It's lack of planning. There is no planning. Before you carry out such major or mega project, you should be able to be futuristic. Where am I going to from here? What will I get from here? What will be the benefit to my people? And not myself now, but to my people. But nobody plans about that. And somebody just wakes up and said, okay, let us do this, and they go ahead to do it. Do you know that all this crime, all this hula baloo issue we are talking about on a daily basis, if Nigeria is able to fix the power sector, most of these things will be highly reduced.
Anyway, like I said, we'll come to solutions pretty soon. But I still want us to remain with the impact of this high cost of servicing our debt, which, like we said, and according to international sources,
did you read one book when you were in school? Yeah. All the animals came together to have a meeting that there is this king of snakes that was killing all of them. And one of them came up to say, look, the only way we can bring down this snake is let us plant mines along her route to where she goes to have her bait every evening. So they put a cutlass with the mouth up. The first one was 1, second one 2, third one 3, just like that. So when the snake was coming, after climbing the first one, the thing cut the tummy. Say, instead of coming back now, move forward again, cut it until started rolling itself on the multiple lives until the snake died. We are in a situation that if we have to stop this thing abruptly, you cannot even stop the borrowing abruptly. How do you get the money to finance the country? Yeah. If you do that, then you are inviting, like I said earlier, you are inviting anarchy. Nobody wants to listen to you. You cannot say you don't want to borrow, therefore you don't pay salaries. You cannot say you don't want to borrow, you will not meet your external responsibilities.
Obligation.
We should also look at it from maintaining our foreign embassies is enough money for the government not to, it's more than what the government can generate internally with what we're having on ground.
Okay, well, Comrade Ferdinand, I'll plead with you before you take us through Tales by Moonlight to hold on. We need to go on a break now. But when we come back, we continue our discussion as we look at that recent statement coming from no other but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu just yesterday, indicating that, well, it's now time we stop our borrowing and see how we can do away with external loans. But like Comrade Odomo have just said, is it possible?
It is going to be possible on a Brady plan.
On a plan we would love to get later. But let's go on a break and also deal with our own issues so we do not end up borrowing. And that's we need to get some commercials.